What's up, everybody? It's Dallas with There's Hope Channel. Listen, we tapped in on Sunday. Um, I just figured, you know what? Let's do a Sunday recap. So we'll see, put this in routine, do a recap of service. So just left service and just wanted to share some highlights and or a recap of the sermon today. So the sermon was from a brother at the church, and great sermon. He spoke from Genesis 12, verses, I believe, 1 through 8 or 1 through 9. And it's essentially the initial call of Abraham. And it's just 3 points I want to share with you that he shared, and then I'll speak on how it spoke to my heart. All right. All right. So the first point was when God called Abraham, the first thing we see is that there was a need for obedience. Like Abraham had to be obedient to God. That was his first point. His second point was that Abraham had to trust in God. And his last point was Abraham worshiped God. And with each point, he shared something. So, in terms of obedience, he shared that we must build up a stamina of obedience, meaning, how do I explain this? Like, rather than just obeying one time, when it comes to doing what God has called us to do and to see the blessings of it, we have to build up a stamina of obeying God over and over again to get to the destination of the blessing. Um, when it comes to trusting in God, it's important for us to realize that when we're obeying and we're going and doing all that God has told us to do, or his word tells us to do, our trust and or our faith will be tested. And lastly, when it comes to our worship to God, um, when Abraham was when he got to the land that the Lord said he would give him, he saw that his enemies was there essentially, the Canaanites, and it says Abraham's response in the midst of this was worship, and Abraham wasn't embarrassed about his worship. He worshiped right there in front of his enemies. It was risky because they weren't followers of God. And lastly, one of the things he shared to that point is that Abraham called on the name of the Lord who is the source of life. Now, it's interesting because I've actually been praying about the first point, like just obedience, like trusting God that God's way is better. So it's always, how do I want to say, maybe mind-boggling or just shocking how the word of God speaks to us right where we are. And there's no way he would have known me and known that I've been praying about these things, but it spoke to me. First of all, obedience. Obedience is something that for me, it's like I can get it right for a bit and then a season, and then boom, it's like my stamina runs short or my selfishness kicks in, and I just get deceived by the desires of my flesh or the temptation or whatever it may be, and I'm just like, man, I'm just going to do what I want. And then all of a sudden, like we all know, that conviction comes in. So obedience has been something that I've been praying about. So it really spoke to me in the part about stamina, not necessarily for me to get a blessing, because I believe that all the blessings that I could have has already been given to me through Jesus. But I do believe that not being obedient does keep me from peace, does keep me from clarity, productivity, and distracted from the things that I can achieve in God and with the time and the life he's given me. So I do want to work on that, and that spoke to me in that way. Now, trusting in God has been something I've been praying about as well. It really spoke to me because it's like, there's these aspirations, there's this ambition and these goals, and sometimes it just seems like it's too big, and I can just kind of get paralyzed. Like I'll work on it, then become paralyzed, or my fear kick in, or frustrated, and just kind of doubt can creep in from time to time. And so trust, like keeping my eyes on Jesus, keeping my eyes on the promises that I already have, and the vision that he's already given me, just working at it, that helps me grow in my trust for God, and just understand that all I have to do is concern myself with today, ask him for strength for the day and strength for the moments that I may face today that would be pretty challenging. For the day that would be challenging, and that grows my trust. That works for me, and that spoke to me. All right. And the last one was Abraham's response in the midst of what he was going through was worship. And worship is not just a song and or a dance or a praise, but worship is connected to obedience, but it's also connected to calling on the name of the Lord or magnifying the Lord's name, like not being afraid to declare that Jesus is real, Jesus is Lord, and he's the way to the Father, he's the way to heaven. So it all spoke to me, and I'm just grateful that God knows exactly what we all need, even though it's one person sharing the scriptures, but it's just amazing how God is always able to use the speaker of the word to preach it, and then it all speaks to us right where we are and on time. So, anyways, just wanted to give y'all a quick recap of Sunday's sermon. It was really, really good. So, something I will be carrying with me this week, and something you can carry with you this week if you didn't make it to service, or it could just add to what you heard when you was at your Sunday service. So, again, we have to obey God and allow that obedience to grow. And in terms of like stamina, like building that stamina, continuing to obey regardless of how we feel, what the situations are. Secondly, we have to trust God and understanding as we obey and as we trust God, our faith will be tested. And lastly, as we are obeying, as we are trusting, we have to be bold about our worship, regardless of where we are or who's around us or what we're facing. We ought to call on the Lord, for he is our source of life, he is our help, and he is our strength. As always, no matter what you're facing, no matter what you're going through, always know there's hope. Have a wonderful week. Peace.